Steve, we are all gonna collectively join in prayer that my winter pants come in time that I ordered. Um,
What did you get expedited delivery?
they were supposed to show up today, which is Monday. We were recording on Monday. Now it said they were delayed in transit until tomorrow, and I'm just anxious that it's gonna go to Wednesday and then Thursday and Friday and then Saturday's gonna come. Here's the thing.
It's gonna be warmer this week than the last game you were there for.
We'll talk about that. I want
Okay,
we'll get there.
sorry.
Um, I have a backup option, but it's more of like the bib that we were talking about, and I can't. It's I either gain some lbs or it's a schmedium, and I can't breathe / sit down in it. So that's the problem. So yeah,
People want to see that.
no, they don't.
It'd be like a Christmas story in real life.
It is exactly like a Christmas story in real life. So anyways, that's where we're at in the podcast this week. The podcast is called Stuff Summer Says with
Steve.
Steve. We also have a guest this week. Our guest this week is a pretty notable figure, Mr. Jay Paterno. He joins us talking Board of Trustees stuff, talking NIL stuff. We hit on everything with him. I think I joked with him that he's kind of like our friend. You said he was our Frankenstein of a guest, and I think that's a perfect way to put him because he hits on every different little topic in that interview. Then we've got the SMU game to talk about. I do want to talk about the weather related to that. I'm gonna pull the list over here. We have our sports person of the year to name, and it was really close. And I'm excited to tell you about that. And then we've also got to talk about the quarterback situation, which is very bizarre, interesting, kind of weird. Probably not in that order. This might be a longer episode. I'm sorry, but deal with it. Listen to our interview with Jay, and we'll be back after this. Steve, if you were gonna put together like a lab of an ideal Stuff Summer Says guest, I kind of think Jay Paterno might be the one person that spits out. Like I think that's what you get. You got a little
He'd be like
sport.
our Frankenstein monster,
Yeah.
but better. Okay, okay.
You got a little
Okay.
sports media, you got a little football, you got a little sports business. I kind of think those are all three of our topics. Is that fair, Jay?
I do a little bit of everything. I wake up most mornings and wonder, I have to figure out what I'm doing from 1 hour to the next. But yeah.
I think your background also describes that well. It's organized chaos, I guess would be the best
Oh, yes,
way to
no
put it.
doubt.
He's a board of trustee member. He's the co-host of Nittany Game Day. He's a writer of several books, including Blitzed. He is Jay Paterno. How are you, Jay?
Doing great. How about you guys?
Good.
Wonderful.
Okay, Jay. I have 1,001 questions for you, and I don't even know where to start. But I want to start particularly maybe on the sports business side, and curious. You're the first trustee we've had on this podcast, so I'm curious. What is the role of Penn State's Board of Trustees in the football process, if you will?
Well, a lot of it was made of what the role is, and our role really is oversight. It's really to make sure that we're doing things the right way in terms of fiscally. I'm certainly not involved in play calling, thankfully. Not, but in terms of oversight of the athletic department, intercollegiate athletics, especially now that some of these things are changing at such a rapid pace. But by and large, we are approving facilities. If a contract comes up, the compensation committee would okay that. If it's a contract with a coordinator or something like that, or even Coach Franklin's contract. But by and large, that's about it.
That makes sense. So I guess let's take that a step further. When it comes to that aspect, what do you feel people misjudge or misread, or what gets misconstrued out there about the NIL or the Board of Trustees role in that space?
Well, I think as it relates to contracts, one of the things the university has always does when they report the contracts, it'll say that the Board of Trustees unanimously approved this contract or that contract extension. It does not go to the full board. There's only one contract that goes to the full board. That's the president's. The compensation committee, which is now the equity and human resources committee, is the only one that approves those contracts. So if you don't like the current contract with the current coach, that's a function of that committee, not of the entire board. I think that's one of the biggest misperceptions that's out there.
That makes sense. The other aspect that we hear is particularly from James Franklin is alignment. What does alignment look like to you, maybe as somebody that has sat relatively close to the chair that James Franklin is also sitting in?
Well, I think alignment changes. What is perceived to be alignment changes almost daily now because of college athletics. When the Lash building vote came up 3 years ago, I guess it was $48 million. And I was one of the people who voted against it because at the time I had already started consulting in NIL and I knew what was coming. And I said, look, in a matter of months, we're not going to be worried about what size our weight room is. We're going to be worried about what our NIL numbers are, because it's not going to matter where you lift weights. It's going to matter how much money you, and people on the board thought I was out of my mind. So the alignment really isn't necessarily spend as much as you can on facilities. The alignment is really make sure that that they have the resources they need. But at the same token, alignment should be flowing from the top down, not from the bottom up. It should be, these are the goals of what Penn State's going to be. These are our academic mission of the university. So I think, and this is not specific to Penn State, but I think the world that college football is in right now, we're right on the borderline of where this is going to become an existential threat to the academic mission of our university, of universities around the country, is what I get at, not just necessarily here. If you look at the investment we have made between the stadium renovation, facilities upgrades, and even just in terms of the money that has been paid and is committed to the head coach's contract, we've committed almost $1 billion to football. That's billion with a B. That's more than anybody else in the country. So we have certainly made the commitments that we need to do.
When you say bottom, I think you said bottom up. What does that mean particularly? I'm curious.
Well, I think the alignment should be an overarching goal that is set by the administration of the university. Hey, we're going to graduate our players. We're going to have guys that belong here. We're going to do these kind of things, and then we're going to compete a certain way. Those kind of things. Not a head coach saying to, and this is something that happens at every school in the country. Head coach comes in and says, I want certain cuts. I want certain shortcuts in admissions. I want certain things, majors that I want my guys to go to. And they're saying the university has to react to what I want, versus the university saying, this is what we believe and this is what we stand for. And if this is not a fit for you, then this isn't the right place for you.
That makes sense. You mentioned NIL, and I'm curious, you were part of the Success with Honor group that founded one of the two first kind of go arounds at it. What went into the combination process? Was that something you were okay with, interested in? Was that why was that necessary?
Well, we were the first collective. At the time we formed a collective, Sandy Barber and Eric Marin, there was no collective. And there were some guys that had money to put up, but they had no way to get it done. So we had already done the work on the website, social media. The back of the house, so to speak, is where we could collect money, how you distributed the accountants, all those kind of things. So we put all that together. Once we put that in motion, because I'm a trustee, I cannot have a day-to-day involvement in it whatsoever under the rules at that time. So we just set it up and let it go. And then as it, there was, and at that time in January of 2023, we had signed contracts with all 85 scholarship football players, as well as with athletes from all 31 teams. So we had people coming from all over the country to find out what we were doing. There was a movement and some people that believed that we should have a football only collective, which, at the end of the day, if you want to give money to football, you give money to football within that space. So they wanted to combine the two. So there wasn't two collectives. It was a little messy. It's still a little messy. But at the end of the day, these rules are changing every day. The plane is flying and we're still working on the wings. And that's not us. That's everywhere. And that's part of what I found out. I've been consulting with Advanced NIL, which is a national NIL consulting group, and knowing what's going on at schools all over the country, because they're in Big Ten schools. They're in most of the major schools in the country that you would know. And you're finding that everybody is reacting to changes almost on a daily or weekly basis.
Is it better now in terms of where you were at comparatively to 2023?
Well, in terms of just as a
everything within Penn State, is everything NIL wise working better?
I mean, again, I've backed away from it because I'm a trustee, so I'm more than happy to not have to deal with it. And as a guy who at the time had 4 kids in college, I was already writing my own NIL check, so to speak. Every couple months, those tuition bills come like, yeah, this is my NIL. But so it seems like things are going well. It seems now the question is going to be when revenue sharing comes next year. That's a major deal. When you look at the latest NCAA and Department of Education filing, we had $200 million in revenue. We cleared $100,000. We're about to add, $22 million of revenue sharing, $10 million settlement. Where does that $32 million a year for the next 10 years come from? How do we distribute it? So there's some real challenges as we go forward.
If you had to make this stuff up, somebody'd probably say, you're making this stuff up. I mean, it's kind of like in your book, right? There's this mesh between what's real and what's not. What has surprised you about the landscape of college athletics as it's changing, as things are going, the changes are happening as you're moving along?
The thing is, no one's in charge. And because no one's in charge, no one knows how to get it directed. There are tons of people have an idea as to how this should look, and no one is, we'll go to Congress. Well, Congress has a hard time passing a bill to decide, what the name of a post office is, let alone coming into college athletics and saying this is how we're going to handle this. If you go back 40 years when the Supreme Court deregulated the TV deals, a number of people, my dad was one of them, Chuck Ninus of Colorado was one of them, a bunch of guys got together and put together the College Football Association, which was a national television package that combined a bunch of conferences. And they distributed that money pretty equitably so that everybody can kind of sit where they are because they wanted a level playing field. And what's happened with the SEC and the Big Ten is they've kind of bullied everybody. And the money's gotten so big that now teams like UCLA, USC, Washington, Oregon are jumping into the Big Ten when really it doesn't make any sense. And for football, you can get away with that. But when you start looking at women's lacrosse or softball or baseball this spring, there's going to be a lot of travel for USC and UCLA and Oregon and Washington, those places. So it's really kind of gone off the rails and nobody's really in charge. Nobody seems to want to be in charge.
Well, yeah, and it feels like you can find an equitable solution, or maybe here's a solution, but then somebody's going to want a little more, right? So yep. we're going to move the line a little bit, even though you have an agreement. Have you, as you were writing books and you're trying to keep stuff fictional, is it hard to make up stuff that's not true, that hasn't happened yet?
Well, the book really is nonfiction fiction. So the stuff that's in the book, the bulk of that stuff happened. The bulk of that stuff is going on right now. I just showed, when I wrote the first one, Hot Seat, those were all real stories that I had come across in my years in college football. But I was originally going to write that as a nonfiction kind of memoir book. And then I realized, you have lawyers involved, because if I say school X did this and school A did that, you'd have a lawyer calling you. And I didn't want to go to my car and start it up and have it blow up some morning because I was writing things that, people didn't want out there. So I made it fiction. So it's really nonfiction fiction. And so this, through all the experience I've had and the stories and talking to coaches and people around the country as to what's going on, it really is, I don't have to make stuff up. And it's one of those things where people have called me and said, is this really going on? I said, absolutely. Well, what schools are going on? I said, I'm not telling you that. That I will not tell you. But I mean, the things in Blitzed are real. It's the first book that really pulls the curtain back and lets people see what's going on in college football right now.
Is it hard to not? I mean, you drop in some real names, right? Like you got a fictional coach, but you drop in some real coaches. You have crossed paths with so many people during your career and have connected in so many ways. Is it hard not to drop in someone's name, or do you on purpose use some initials to make sure you're having some fun knowing that somebody's name's in there in some way for you?
Well, I have to kind of, when I tell some of the more salacious stuff in the book, I have to, obviously I use fake names, but I use them in a way that I can associate so I don't forget who I'm writing about.
Ah.
That's the hardest part. I know that, but other people won't know it, hopefully. But so that's the hardest thing, to try and to know that this is the voice I'm writing in. Fiction is so much harder to write than nonfiction, because you just tell a story when it's nonfiction as you know it to be true. With fiction, you have to make sure that somebody who transferred in the spring isn't making a play in the third quarter of Ohio State's game against Michigan State. So you have to keep those things constantly in your mind when you're writing. And I just notebooks and notebooks of stuff as you go, so you can reference it.
Why do you enjoy writing, Jay?
I just love the challenge of putting things together. And the thing that's been great about writing fiction is it's an even bigger challenge, because you have to fit pieces in, and you try and make certain phrases for a certain way. You try and inject things that tell what's really going on or have some value to them. So it's a lot of fun to write those things.
You are also doing Nittany Game Day.
Game week.
Sorry. The TV aspect, why was that something that appealed to you?
Well, I had started doing some stuff, I guess as far back as 2016, doing a segment on a show called Blue Eye Tailgate Show, which came out of WHVL. So I just did kind of a game plan breakdown. And then I guess it would have been 3 years ago, the first year out of COVID, Todd Sadowski and I had worked on that show, and Tom Bradley was out of coaching. I said, why don't we put together a show? And we put together the show just to kind of give fans something that, kind of talk about the game, just like in a game week, talk about the game that just happened, talk about what's coming up. And then we add a guest in, an interview with a guest in every week. And then this year we had a trivia, but it's been a lot of fun to do that. So we want people that watch the show to have a feel for, hey, when we're playing Ohio State, these are the kind of things they do defensively. These are the kind of things they do offensively. Watch this to key their defense, what might be coming, or look at these kind of things that come into play. So that part, it's been a lot of fun for me to do that, almost like scouting an opponent all over again.
Have you learned anything about football that you didn't necessarily know or understand differently now as a media member compared to when you were a coach?
I don't know it's that, but I think since I've been out of coaching, I've done a bunch of consulting with a lot of different things. One of the things that I became more aware of is the mental health aspect of what's going on. And the part is from being a trustee, where you're starting to realize the mental health issues that are happening on campus with students by and large. But the thing that's been interesting through the consulting with the NIL stuff is you're now starting to realize, the NIL, everybody thought it's going to be great. These players are going to get paid. Well, suddenly the players are adult. They're adults now. They're getting a car. Well, who's going to insure the car that they leased for you? Who's going to make sure that these things happen? If you are a Virginia native and you're playing at Penn State and you get use of a car and certain other things, now you're talking about a state income tax filing in Pennsylvania. Who's going to do that for you? All these things that come with it, and the pressures that are brought on these guys from family members or friends, like, why aren't you making as much as that guy? And so those mental health issues become part of it, as well as trying to perform at a peak level as a player. Oh, and by the way, go to school too and compete in a classroom. So all those things are things that I would never have thought about. And, the way we look at mental health now, as opposed to when I was coaching, it's night and day. And some of the things that I've learned about those issues now, I would be a much better coach in some ways than I was back then. But every coach would be a lot better because no one talked about that stuff back then.
How does that inform your media strategy when you're talking to a fan on your TV show then?
Well, I think one of the things that we've got to be careful of with the expectations of the student athletes, because of NIL, because of what's going on. One of the things I think universities have done a lousy job of preparing these guys for is what comes on the back end of that with NIL. Because, now you're not seen as a 19-year-old who's out there playing for dear old state. Now you're seen as a guy who's a we have a really an industry of coaches and players that have become independent contractors that will bounce from place to place looking for more money. And the fans see that. So the fans have taken a more professionalized look at the game. So if you go out and throw 2 interceptions, or you out and fumble, or you get beat on a deep pass that wins the game for the other team, the fans are much less hesitant to go on social media and jump on you on social media. And no one's really prepared these guys for what comes with all this stuff. You never get anything for nothing. And with the money comes criticism and comes a professionalized look at it. And it's the same thing with coaches. Coaches are talking about how harsh things are. Well, when you make the kind of money that these guys are making, they look at you differently.
What's your relationship with the program as a fan? We talked about the trustee. We talked about kind of media. This week is a playoff game. Never happened in the history of the stadium. It's SMU, first time since '78. How do you attend games? How do you consume them as a fan yourself these days?
I go to games. I keep my mouth shut and watch what happens and hope the best. Hope for the best. I mean, obviously, internally as games go, and it doesn't matter if I'm watching Penn State, Ohio State, or Penn State play. I went out to watch Oregon, Ohio State play out in Eugene, and you sit there and you're coaching the game the whole time, and you're talking through in your own mind, oh, they should call timeout here. They don't. Why are they doing this? But I just keep it internally and keep my mouth shut because I don't want to be the former coach that's up there shooting his mouth off about what we used to do or what they should do, and I don't want to be the trustee that's critical of the program. We had during one of our trustee meetings, the administration presented some things, and one of the trustees said, we really as a board should, respect the expertise of these people because they know what they're doing. And I said, well, I would just want to make sure that when I was coaching, you guys were in these board meetings respecting the expertise back then, because I have a feeling some of you guys didn't respect that expertise. It was just a moment of levity, but I tried. I keep my distance. I let them do their jobs. It's hard enough without somebody who used to coach or a trustee sticking their nose in. I don't go to practices. I just sit up there and watch the games.
All right.
Are you excited for a playoff game here?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think 12 teams is probably too much. 4 more games is probably too much. And I think that's all going to come out in the wash as we go. Because, if you're arguing about a team that's got 3 losses getting in, they're probably not winning the whole thing anyway. And I think you're starting to tax, the guys at Penn State that played in the Big Ten championship game, we're 13 games right now. We get to the finals, that's 17 games. That's an NFL schedule. It's too much. And in talking to Jim Tressel, who was at Youngstown State and went through a 15-game schedule, he said, the difference at that level is you don't have the collisions and the speed that you have at this level. And you don't have as many guys that have NFL aspirations. And, talking to Urban Meyer, they won the national championship in 2014, and that was 15 games. And he said, if you had told us we had to play 1 or 2 more games, we were on our 3rd quarterback. We had a bunch of guys hurt. He said, I don't think we could have played 2 more games. So it's going to be interesting to see how that all shakes out as we go this year.
All right, Jay, we want to get you out of here. I want to be mindful of your time, but you're a Penn Stater, so you got 3 questions to answer before you get off this interview, okay?
Okay.
What is Jay Paterno's go-to creamery ice cream flavor?
Usually coconut chip.
Interesting.
I know what you thought I was going to say.
I didn't.
Actually, no, I didn't even say it until you just now said it. Honestly,
I didn't think you were going to say that. I didn't think you were going to say that.
But I think you're our first coconut chip.
Yeah.
Peachy Paterno is in my top 3 or 4.
Okay. But I didn't.
But the black raspberry frozen yogurt, you can't even tell it's frozen yogurt. It's ridiculous. It's so good. They're all good.
Okay. All right. I want you to put slightly aside your Board of Trustees hat, because you do have some power when I ask this question. You're the czar of Penn State sports. What change are you making to the fan experience?
I am very nervous about what's going to happen in the stadium. I'm really nervous. I think, we have a fan base for which most of our fans, their season ticket money is discretionary income, not surplus income. And if we think we're going to tear down the West Side and put in a bunch of high price, seats where you can go into a restaurant during the game and have a steak and a scotch, and not be out there. I worry that we're going to price a lot of people out of it. And I also worry that the home field advantage that guys will tell you we have, that area behind the home bench, those are loud fans that are there every week. There are most loyal fans outside of our students. I worry about that big time, that everything's becoming transactional, everything's becoming monetized. And, that's not what this is supposed to be about.
Makes sense. Last one. Actually, I'm going to ask it this way. Can Jay Paterno walk into a bar without being recognized in the town of State College?
Sometimes yes, sometimes
Okay.
no. It depends. Yeah, sometimes no. But I think I've been out of coaching so long now. I don't think students have any sense of who I am anymore. But I think fans do, from the TV show and other things.
Okay, we always.
Okay, so now you backwards. Go ahead.
Yeah,
and ask the question
we can ask the question. Any bar, living or dead, what bar, if Jay Paterno's back in town for one night and one night only, is he walking into?
Living or dead? That's a hard one. Oh my God. I think the Skeller is just one of those things that's always been there.
Okay.
And I know it's called Doggies, but when you walk in, you're still in the Skeller. And the Herlockers that bought that building got a lot of criticism initially. I think most people are pretty pleased with what they did with it, and that's and I think they've done a nice job. I used to spend a lot of time in Zeno's way back when, but I by and large I'm a homebody now.
Okay, all right, that's why.
But I did do. They used to have the around the world in 80 beers for Zeno's with the passport, and I did get it. And my name was on the wall, and someone stole my plaque, my little name on there. So,
that's funny.
I'm not bitter about that at all.
Okay, someone will.
They didn't make a new one, or do you have to drink the beers again?
I don't know. I at this point, it's probably better that it's not up there because I don't drink anymore now because I had a player I coached at one point that really was. And I said, look, you need to be the kind of person and player you need to be. You need to quit. And he goes, well, you drink, and I said, I'll quit.
That's awesome.
And so I did. And so I'll have an occasional beer here and there, a glass of wine at home, but by and large, my days of going to bars are long gone. Plus, it's all past my bedtime. And I don't want to pay to skip the line either. I mean, good Lord, I am so opposed to that whole concept. Don't get me started.
There you have it. Jay Paterno does not like the pay to skip the line system at Penn State.
No. Get in line and wait your turn, damn it. Pay your dues.
Love that. I love that.
I sound like the old guy in the Muppets.
That's okay.
But I know it and I own it.
That's amazing. Okay. Where can people find you, your book, your website, your TV show, all of that?
Geez, let's see. The TV show's easy. That's NittanyGameWeek.com. And we're on 13 stations from Philly to Pittsburgh. We're in Ohio, parts of Ohio, New Jersey. So we're in about 8-9 states. And if you're flying anywhere on a Friday evening, we are on Reach TV, which is in every major airport in the country, is seeing Penn State football on Friday evening, which is great. That's NittanyGameWeek.com. But in terms of me, Jay V Paterno, Jay, the letter V, Paterno.com. That's where you can get the books. That's where you can read blogs, all kinds of stuff. And then certainly books are on Amazon.com, Barnes. You can go to all your normal websites and get the books there as well.
All right. Well, thank you for your time, Jay. Steve, I think the biggest thing that I took away is we asked Jay what I hopefully felt like were some tougher questions, and he answered all of them head on pretty honestly and how he felt about them. I know, I think it was interesting to hear how his perspective has changed on a lot of things kind of in the seat he's in now. I thought that was a big takeaway. I think the other thing that's interesting to me is just how even people in power positions recognize that everything is moving at 120,000 miles per hour right now, and it's borderline hard to keep up. And I think that grounds some of those decisions and opinions that he and some of the others on the board have. And I think that was an interesting bit. And I am not surprised by his creamery ice cream answer, because more so not surprised that it was Peachy Paterno, because it would be weird to order something that was named after your last name. So that would be my
I wasn't
biggest
even
takeaway?
thinking, until he said, yeah, it wasn't the one you were thinking. I wasn't even thinking it. So
Okay.
I would just like his answer is not one we've heard before.
Yeah.
Two things, I think.
Okay.
One, for people who can't see it, got a coat on, right? Like, and I got to
appreciated
tell
that.
you that the thing, yeah, it's because I'm so well dressed, right? But yes, I think I saw him at an event on campus a couple years ago. Robert Gibbs, the White House spokesperson, was in. Somehow Sue Paterno knew him or knew of him. It was when Auburn was in town because Gibbs was an Auburn connection, and Jay was part of the panel. And Sue came up to him after the event and was giving him heck as a mom would nicely because he had a suit coat on and dress pants, but he had on sneakers. And his mom's like, "Why? Like dress? Like what's going on?" And it was just the perfect mom thing for his son. And he's like, "Mom, I'm going to be walking somewhere later, whatever else." So I like that about him. I like that grounded piece of that's who he is for all those things and who his parents made him. And he's up. He's hardworking. Like he's got the books. He's trying to find a show. He's working and doing some things. Like I said, the NIL consulting, the trustee stuff. So I respect him for that. Like I don't whatever people's opinions are or aren't. Like he's out there trying stuff, doing stuff, working, not just resting on the name. Right? I mean, he may be using the name to open some doors, but I think he works his butt off, and I think that's a cool thing.
I think that's fair. I think it's interesting to hear somebody. I mean, he's a former quarterback, a former offensive coordinator. I think it's interesting to hear somebody analytically kind of dabble. Not that there's anything that hard about writing, but writing isn't easy, and I think it's interesting to hear the left brain, right brain. I thought that was a good takeaway from him. Yeah, I appreciated his time. I appreciated his honesty. I appreciated what he brought. I think, I think there was stuff in that interview that I probably like the alignment thing. I don't know if I agree with that, but I understand where he's coming from, and I certainly do agree with the same apprehensions. I have the same apprehensions about the seating thing with the stadium as well, and I think that's interesting that he brought that up, and I think it is reassuring at least to know that that's being looked after. But I also recognize what it takes to win in this atmosphere and in this college football environment. And he even alluded to it that it's kind of a money thing. So I think, I may not agree with him on everything, but I appreciated that he at least covered everything that and brought valid points to most of or all of that argument, all of those arguments.
The money thing, you got I'm guessing you and many others got an email this week maybe late last week after Penn State made the playoff, offering to sell you a playoff watch. Did you get that? Did you get that one?
We didn't talk about that. Did I? Yeah, that's weird.
No, I mean, it just struck. Yes. So how many people buy the watch?
That's what I want to know. Because there was only 100 made in the email. It said I didn't even look at the price of the watch.
Oh, I don't even want to know. I went to the monetization thing. I'm like, oh God, they made the playoffs and now there's a watch. But will they sell 100 watches to all the people who are crazy enough to buy one at whatever the price point is?
Let me see if I can find the price. I don't know. That's okay. Let's actually. You brought this up in Indianapolis, and we'll sit here for a second because I think this is a good spot to sit. I don't want to say you criticized me, but you questioned my logic in buying stuff before the game. Because I bought like big commemorative Big Ten championship stuff, and you're like,
well, yeah, as long as you're not saying they're the champions, you're good,
right? Like you were like, that's not bad karma to you, and I'm like, no, it's not. But now I won't buy any of the playoff stuff because it's a little bit different, I think.
So you can't touch the CFP playoff shirts until they get to the championship game.
Yeah, like and I don't even know that. I think I need them to like win. Like anytime
it's a cool little logo. That might be the best thing about the CFP playoff.
That's the annoying thing about the college.
I mean, that might be the best thing they do. The rest of what they do, and we'll talk about it. There's one thing I'm going to talk about later tonight that I think is unseemly that they do, or it sounded mean-spirited, but the logo is cool.
Okay, so, but in general, like when the Lightning make the playoffs, I don't buy any of that stuff. Only when they've won the Stanley Cup do I buy that stuff.
Okay.
Now, there was one time we bought AFC champion stuff for the Steelers, and then they lost, I think, the Super Bowl, so that we have not bought AFC champion stuff until after the Super Bowl, like since then, basically. And I don't know.
Sure.
I can't find this watch. Yeah, no, the watch was weird.
I don't know if there was a price in it because you had to click. I think you had to click on. I'm like, they're selling people already, and how many people are going to buy these watches? So, yeah.
So, anyways, I think that's good. I was curious about that. I wanted to ask you about that. So, let's go to the news of the week, and then we can get to the college football playoff. The news of the week is the last 24 hours. A whole hell of a lot has happened, particularly with Penn State's quarterback room. First Sunday evening, a lot of people were somewhat not that surprised, but a little surprised to see Beau Pribula announcing that he was transferring. And then people were extremely surprised to see that he is no longer going to be a participant in the college football playoff, which led to a lot of people thinking that Drew Aller is going to say, which within 12 hours of Beau posting that, he confirmed that he is going to stay for 2025. I think we have all summer, we have all winter, we have all spring to talk about Drew staying. I think, as I wrote about this morning, like, I want to talk about the Beau thing because I don't think it's fair to Beau. Because he's playing within the rules. It's just the rules are not set up well that he gets punished because now because you forget about the human aspect of this. He can't be a part of the experience of playing in the college football playoff because he has to go find a spot somewhere else. Theory he could, but as James Franklin said, it doesn't work like that. Like we have to deal with reality. And then I think the other thing that I just annoyed me about that situation is everybody knew this was coming and nobody did anything about this situation. Like for the last however many years, and we've all kind of complained, the timeline of transfer portal, college football playoff, conference championships, recruiting, early signing window is a mess, but nobody wants to fix it, and it should not be the player's job. They should not be being punished for it. And I don't even know that it should be the coach's job. It should be administrators. It should be the NCAA. It should be people that are supposed to fix these types of issues, fixing these types of issues. That was a long rant. How does Steve feel?
No, you're right. Any number of the administrators who are making their money on the backs of the student athletes, go ahead and find a job that helps solve these problems. NCAA, this is probably them more so. Obviously, they aren't the CFP people, they aren't the bowl people, but they're trying to probably find a place in the calendar that works. But this doesn't. Whether you're in a bowl, whether you're a bowl team, whether you're a playoff team, this isn't probably the right time. But then you got coaches, changing, and you've got to get players. So it is just a mess unless somebody stands up and says, hey, we don't want more. And it goes back to the Jay thing. Hey, here's some rules. And then somebody's going to say, well, no, I want a little bit more here. I can do it. If you don't have the championship games, or if the playoff is compressed or the season's a little shorter, maybe you've got a week somewhere where a transfer window works better for more people. But it's going to require somebody saying, okay, good, we'll take less of this and do something for the greater good. And that just doesn't always happen. Like that rarely happens.
I agree with that. And I think what I was wrestling with it is where this actually is a bigger issue is the fact that they're still student athletes, because you've got to get enrolled in the college within the semester window to make sure that you're on campus. And it's like, I don't know, like I'm just starting to struggle. Like, I'm kind of starting to struggle with that idea. Not that I think you need to be enrolled in the school to play there, but I think like there's got to be some sort of a workaround there, or some sort of something that everybody can collectively agree on. Keyword on collective, and sort of solve for that. And I think that's why this issue actually is happening, because he's got to enroll into a school by X date. Especially now, if you're transferring off the two playoff teams, it's not till February that you're at the new school if you stay until the championship game,
Which means you can't. You've got to go enroll somewhere to be eligible, right?
Right.
So this is one of those perfect things where it just makes somebody who thinks they believe one thing believe another. Oh, finish what you start. Oh, but have the freedom to make a decision. Okay, well, now they are at direct odds.
Right.
You can't, like, I no animus for me for Beau. Like, it's a decision that's best for him. If he was another student in some other sport doing some other thing and needed a transfer at the end of the semester to go to another school or whatever, we'd be all happy. And that's one of the reasons we're paying football players and other student athletes, because, other kids could make money. next man up. Sorry, like hello, Ethan Grunkmeyer, and
Yeah.
good. And I hope Beau finds a place that he fits and is happy and gets a chance to play.
No, it's just a weird situation. What did you watch James Franklin's press conference today?
I watched it afterwards.
Okay.
So
He seemed, that was one of the more pissed off James Franklin's at a Monday, Tuesday press conference I've seen from James Franklin. I felt like, I think this is right.
As we positioned him for some other things and talked about championing the sport, doing some things, having opinion, being a voice, that this was clearly one of those times he could do it. And also, hello game plan, goodbye game plan, right? Like,
yeah.
It's just in terms of comfort level of coach and playing with confidence throughout the year, knowing, Pribula is a great backup quarterback for them, right? You know what's going to happen. You know what you can do. There's a level of comfort there. Now that's gone.
Right.
You're one injury away from, trouble.
Right. No, sorry. I was just saying, as much as I don't like, I didn't love the Beau system, Beau implementation at times. He's not necessarily a backup, but he's not a starter either. Like, he's kind of in this weird gray area, and he's probably a little bit unique in that situation. But, yeah, I can understand from the X's and O's perspective why Franklin was so annoyed and frustrated with all of this. So yeah,
Did you look? I took Photoshop and blew up Beau's. It wasn't some big smoking gun, but I couldn't see the logo on the right hand side of Beau's thing, and it was Arum Sports, AURUM Sports, which is like a sports management company that made his announcement for him. So I just thought that was interesting. Like, it wasn't like the kid popped it off or athletics helped him on the way out the door. Like, it was whoever's helping him find the next place, I assume.
I didn't even know. Oh, now it's right there, and now I see it plain as day. That's interesting to me. You know what I'm fascinated by, because I've seen it a couple times. It's representative versus agent. I've seen like some reporters call them, oh, his agent says he's going to transfer to X school, or his representatives say. And I think, I don't know. I think there's some stuff, like I haven't read into all of that stuff, and I know that there can be shady characters in that space in particular. I do think it's interesting, but I would appreciate if you called it more an agent, because it kind of feels like that's what it is, kind of more so.
Maybe the agents that actually have to have tests and be certified that somebody else would use the word, right? So
right, and that's kind of what I'm getting at there. So that was good. That was a good little pickup by Steve there. I mean, you got to think he's gonna get money out of this. Like, wherever he goes, he's gonna probably be the starter. And starting quarterbacks are earning a nice chunk of change. Nobody knows what the ideal number is. I did not, and I apologize for what I'm about to say, because if it did happen, I'm gonna look like a total idiot. But I'm gonna say it anyways. I did not watch the Drew Aller press conference, but I want to know, and I wish somebody would just straight up be like, was NIL a factor in you staying today for 2025? And like, who do you want to shout out? Like, it was, but I just want somebody to like force the issue.
That would have been on Grumpy Steve's list of 5 questions that aren't going to be asked, and he would have written it down 5 times. I mean, no, they're not going to ask, because they would say no. No, he's not going to answer it. So why would I waste my question on that? Or they don't want to, or they say everybody knows they're getting paid, so why should I ask? But yes, you could. How big of a role did an NIL play in you being able to stay here?
But come on, you're curious. You.
Oh, I'm in favor. Even acknowledging the mental health aspects, going back to Jay, the challenges of knowing they're paid. I'm in favor of a fully transparent salary cap and pay sheet.
There it is. See?
Like, I think they need to come to like a salary cap and say right tackle's worth this, quarterback's worth this, safety's worth this, and then everybody knows, and then everybody's, they can cheat a different way, but everybody's playing on the same field again.
And I think that's where I'm at with it, and that's why I was curious. Like, going back to the Beau thing, I saw somebody message me and was like, I heard he wants $2 million. And this was like just a random fan from another school, like not an inside source or anything. And then on the message boards, I heard he wanted $4 million. There's all of these different weird numbers out there, and I think that's just kind of going back to Steve's point. Yeah, Steve would have asked the question. I trust him. He would have asked the question. All right. Anything else there on the quarterback situation? Anything else we didn't cover there? You feel good?
Can I squeeze in one thing? Well, no, good. Never mind. We'll do it next week. We'll be around next week talking football. I'm going to save it for next week, hoping that we're around to talk about this topic.
Okay. All right.
I'm going to highlight it on my list.
Doesn't want to empty the bag now. Okay, I'm ready.
No, I think it'll be good next week too.
Okay. Let's quickly name the Penn State Sports Person of the Year, or as I like to call it, the SSWS PS SPOTY.
Good thing there's still S's on the board. Wow.
Yes, we'll work on an acronym there. It was razor thin. It was less than a percentage point. I appreciate everybody that submitted their answer. I think the closest of any of the like little competitions we've had, this one was by far the closest. The fan vote, the choice for Penn State Sports Person of the Year is tight end Tyler Warren, and I agree with it. It was back and forth. Like you could watch it in live time, go back and forth between Tyler Warren and Katie Shoemaker-Colley. Katie got a little bit last second push right towards the end that kind of made up for the little bit of lost ground she had because of their win, which congratulations to them in heading to the Final Four. Does not take away the impressive year that team has had. Our very serious media word is very serious and should not ruin anybody's expectations or days. But I think you can make an argument either way. We talked about this last week on the podcast. I think Tyler Warren, now Mackey Award winning Tyler Warren, at least from the football perspective, certainly deserves it. I'll probably do a little write up and some thoughts there on the blog, but I appreciate.
Well, at least nobody will be bitching that he didn't win,
right?
Like the Heisman and whatever else. Like people will be like, "There's an award he deserves." There you go.
Who do we think the one Heisman voter was? I still haven't found it out.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't think it's a Penn Stater. I don't think a Penn Stater in the ones that I've seen. I don't necessarily want to say that's throwing away their vote because I think I would have voted for him. I would probably had him second. I think if I had a Heisman vote, but my Heisman vote doesn't matter. So yeah, congratulations to Tyler Warren on winning the real most important award of December, which is that's the SSWS SPOTY. Oh wait, there's a PS in there somewhere.
And thank you to everybody who voted.
Yeah, thank you to everybody.
Seriously, that was. I mean, we didn't think we were. I mean, we went into last week thinking we were going to talk and name one, and then you said let's vote, and I'm glad people responded.
Yeah, no, like I said, I was stunned that Steve and I were on two different ends of the wavelength there. Okay, we did that. Let's talk about weather. This week, I got very bored and was like, "What are the coldest games in Beaver Stadium history?" Were you at? How many of these were you at? You were at least.
I was at more than I thought I was at. Like I was at the top couple. 3, 4,
including the Maryland.
Call it back up again here.
Including the Maryland game. Let's go over the top 5.
I've been at all the ones I think all the ones that I could have been at that should have been in years that I was there. I was at. Like I mean,
so
I wasn't here in the 90s, but they weren't any list from the 90s.
So the coldest game ever at Beaver Stadium, according to the Open Media weather tracking, was the Notre Dame game in '87, which was 21.3 degrees average temperature. That is like
I was there.
People say that was the coldest experience they've ever had, not just coldest Penn State game they've ever had.
It was damn cold.
Yes. And third,
Michigan State in 2008.
Michigan State was Michigan State. I don't remember that game particularly because I don't think I was at that game.
It was like an end of the season kind of throwaway game. Like it just, that's what you get that next to last week in November. It was just cold. I don't remember that one as cold. Notre Dame was just so damn cold, and Maryland was cold 2 weeks ago. Really stinking cold.
There was the Wisconsin game that I said was what I thought was the coldest I've ever been. But that Maryland game 2 weeks ago is number 3 all time. So that kind of brings me to the point. Will Penn State's football game on Saturday get into this top 10? The temperatures of 29, I think, is what AccuWeather has. So that would put it at 9th or 8th or 9th.
It'll be close, right? Like it could be a top 10. It'll be interesting to see if it makes history that way.
Do you feel like that will impact the fan turnout that seems like ticket sales are a little softer than people are expecting. Pat Kraft says that they expect the sellout still and are planning for a sellout. Kind of getting close though.
Yeah, it is. I guess I'd be pleasantly surprised for them if they got a sellout. It's a big stadium for a game that's on TV. Penn State people complain about noon games. It is the least attractive of the 4 first-round games. It just is in terms of matchup. So yeah, I heard Rick Clark, I think his name is. I'm blanking out. Look, was the executive director of the CFP. Was on Coach K's Basketball and Beyond show when I was driving home last night with that podcast, and he talked about, and I thought this sounded dismissive by the CFP folks. He said since the games have been named, they've been at the first round sites, helping the schools make sure they're ready to put on a first round game, put on a game of this magnitude. You know, this will be the biggest game in the history of all these programs, and we want to make sure it comes off well. The first round host sites are Notre Dame, Texas, Penn State, and Ohio State. I don't think Penn State SMU is in any way the biggest game in the history of Beaver State. It's the most historic because it's very historic because it's a playoff game.
Go ahead.
It is not the biggest game in the history of this program. There has to be more games than this. There has to be 5 games at least you were more excited to attend than the one this weekend, right? Or not?
5? It's close. That's a really good question. Like that's because man, I don't.
It's not number one.
It is not number one.
Think about Notre Dame. Think about Texas. Think about Ohio State. These games this weekend are not the most important games in the history of those programs. Now, Ohio State, if they lose, it might be one of the more meaningful games.
Sure, yeah,
might be one of the more meaningful games. But I don't know. I just thought that sounded question. a little dismissive,
it's a little pompous. I think is fair.
That's the word I was looking for.
I think that's fair. I don't know on that one, Steve. I think it is one of the games that I'm most excited for. But you're right. If they win, like in a way, like we're gonna think about the next game and maybe the next game, and then probably definitely the last game, right? Like
right.
So I don't think they're necessarily the most important or the most historical. Certainly, from the matchup perspective, really. For other than, I think the most intriguing is Indiana and Notre Dame because they're like kind of playing for a legitimate state championship because they've all played, all the 3 schools have now all have ended up playing each other. But yeah, no, I think I didn't know how to. I've been wrestling with that, so I'm glad you brought that up. I don't think I'm top 5, but it's certainly top 10 of most excited to go to.
And that's fine. But from the CFP, of these 4 games this weekend, I think there's one with my deep knowledge, right, of Ohio State and Texas and Notre Dame. There's probably one that maybe has a chance to set an attendance record, and that's Indiana Notre Dame, right? Just because the people from Indiana are geeked. But I don't know. I'd have to look at what was there for like a Miami game or somebody else. Because, this is not the biggest game in the history of Notre Dame Stadium. It just no way.
There's no way.
So I just thought that sounded, from the CFP's side of it, nice logo and all. But dang, these programs know what they're doing. For as tough as we are and nitpicky as we are about Penn State and game presentation and whatever else, I think they kind of do know what they're doing, at least at this point of the season. Beginning of next season, they'll start at ground zero again and build back up. But like for the CFP to like diss these programs that way, it sounded pompous.
Okay, I think that's fair. I think that that feels pompous. That is not showing reverence to really like anything prior to the BCS era. And maybe even some of the games in the BCS era for some of those other schools, right? Like there was what was the Ohio State Michigan game? There was the night 1 versus 2. That's a particularly big game, and DKR has certainly had its fair share of massively important games as well. I think that was good. You asked another question kind of related to this. you said that you think Penn State SMU could be the most overlooked of the first round matchups. Explain.
Um, 2 college game day shows on site, neither one at Beaver Stadium, right? And again, it's a bad noon games are bad for game day, right? Because fans go in. Although you could do the studio inside. Um, I just think it's because it's the least compelling in many ways. It's just overlooked a little bit. Like people are like, oh, okay, they're playing that game at noon. Penn State's going to go there and win. It doesn't feel. I mean, Tennessee, Ohio State is the closest in terms of the seeds. The 8-9, and Indiana, Notre Dame is state championship, one of the best stories of the year against traditional Notre Dame program. Texas is later in the day, so maybe some more eyeballs. It just feels like this is the sleepy starter to the day on Saturday in some ways. And then they've got an hour for people's attention, or an NFL game kicks off at 1, which is going to impact viewership.
Particularly, wow, we haven't even talked about that too. Particularly, I think because the game's on TNT, and that even though it's going to be ESPN graphics, ESPN packaging, it's going to feel a little unfamiliar and weird. So I think that's also a small aspect to it, and I really think I don't know that Texas and Clemson is that interesting to me. Just because other than I don't know, I think Dabo's time is kind of come and gone. In terms of like him being a central star in the sport. I think Sark is probably a bigger star in the sport, at least from that perspective. So I think that I think, like I said, I think Notre Dame Indiana is interesting for a lot of different reasons, particularly if you're a college football like nerd, kind of like us. And then Tennessee Ohio State is two big brands colliding in prime time. So I think that is a fair assessment to say that it's overlooked, at least from the media aspect. We didn't talk about the fact that the Steelers play at 4:30 on Sunday, which is also like I wonder if that, like, part of me has to wonder if that was part of the reason why that game is at noon. Aside from the fact, like, if Penn State was playing Clemson, like, let's say those, like, Clemson and SMU had switched seeds almost, would this game be at noon? And I don't know that it would, but that's like it would be fascinating to see what the impact on a Steelers game would be in terms of TV ratings, because this was something, my college roommate Andy Medore, he's a Ravens fan, so of course we always text about those games, and he's like, you realize that like we could be in for like a little bit of a headache where we have to watch a Penn State game, but also worry about the Steelers Ravens game at the same time.
I think Penn State Clemson, maybe that would have been at 4. Certainly, it still could have been at noon. Penn State was not going to be the Friday night game or the Saturday night game.
Right.
I mean, for as much as there's power in the brand, the Ohio State brand is a little bigger. Notre Dame's brand is a little bigger, and the way the stuff fell, they were just the more compelling night games that ABC was going to take. Say, thank you very much. We're going to take our big ratings on Friday night and Saturday night. And TNT and Max, thanks for helping us out by taking these games, and good luck with those ratings there. I mean, they're still ABC, ESPN products, but
yeah. Okay. How do we feel about the actual football game that is played? How are you? What is Steve's pulse check? Optimistic Steve showing up today?
At Penn State, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think we've moved the bar for success, and it includes winning this weekend, and I think they do.
I think it is not a low stakes, but a lower pressure, don't shoot yourself in the foot situation, as long as they don't shoot themselves in the foot and take care and do what they're supposed to. I think they should be fine. So I feel good about Saturday. I think they'll be ready. I think Penn State realizes what an opportunity they have here, and I think that's a cool thing, and that's what I'm excited about, to see how they take advantage of that opportunity as a fan. I can rewrite a lot of stuff. Okay.
Depending on what you're wearing, you may be standing up the whole game. You'll be able to cheer straight up, standing the whole time.
I'm telling you,
we're
gonna, like I said, we're gonna do a little seance, a little prayer for the Amazon man that he gets those 2 packages. I also bought something else, but those won't make it. Those won't show up till Dear Diary, probably. I'm excited about those. Covered a lot there. What else? That's everything, right? Is it?
Yep, I think we got old guy, young guy, and I'm saving my
You're saving something for next
take
week.
about the coach for next week because I think it holds up.
Okay. He's gonna. Okay. Old guy, young guy. We teased this one 2 weeks ago. Steve got his little punishment last week. That meat coffee, still the highlight of the show. But here's what I want to know: what are the best and worst Christmas commercials?
Oh, you didn't. I don't have a worst. You just
You
said
have a
best.
worst? It says best and worst Christmas show.
Oh, okay, whatever. I'm not a negative guy. I mean, come on, everybody knows.
Yeah.
They look to me for positivity.
All right, what is the best Christmas commercial?
Gus, the PA lottery, groundhog.
Like not the Happy Holidays Rita one.
No, the one with little Gus is going door to door. It was made 15, 20 years ago, and they trot it out every year, and he's selling lottery tickets in their little town. He's like walking down Sesame Street selling lottery tickets.
That is Steve's. Wow, I'm surprised by that answer. Not a childhood one of yesteryear.
I don't know. I didn't remember. I have the three that I had for best were
okay.
All
what were your other two?
Okay.
What were your other two?
I'll give you another Pennsylvania one first. It's the Hershey Kisses bells on the tree.
That one's up
where
there
it, like,
for me.
Jumps up there and jingles on the tree. And then anything with the Coke polar bears, right? They trot that out with the polar bear slide and whatever else.
Not
the
this
Gus,
year, though.
The polar bears and the Hershey's Kisses.
Well,
did the bears get sidelined again?
The bears are AI generated this year. It's kind of creepy.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did that happen last year?
I think maybe. I don't know. No, I think the Hershey Bells one is one of my favorites. Like that's a stop and watch it when it's on. The Eaton Park one where the star jumps up on the tree, is up there for me. I'm trying to think if there's any others that I would.
So you have worse though.
No, I think those two are up there. The worst is the one that I don't understand, and it's because I don't think we got in the Altoona area. And then I moved to college, and we started seeing it, and I can't stand the jingle, and I don't understand like the appeal of everybody freaking out over it. It is the Hess truck commercial. I do not.
Okay.
I don't understand. I was not a Hess truck toy collector. I was a Tonka truck kind of kid. Yeah, no.
Yeah, but that was Eastern Pennsylvania, New York, and New Jersey, right? There were always Hess trucks at Christmas. So yeah, there's probably generations there of history. Yep.
Okay. So that one was not nostalgic for me, and I feel that the one that I really do enjoy probably the most is the M&Ms in Santa. When they scare Santa, and they scare each other, and they say they're real. That one is also up there on my top ones. Those are the ones I look forward to.
Those are good. Those are good all the way around.
All right.
You don't know we're talking? Google them, watch them, go down a little Christmas commercial rabbit hole.
Okay. All right. So here's how this week will work. It is Monday. Well, by the time you're listening to this, it's Tuesday. There will be depth charts on the blog. I would anticipate some point within Tuesday evening. Thursday, I will have the traditional game preview. There will also be a game recap. Depending on how Friday or Saturday goes, we'll see there. And then we'll also have a podcast next week talking about everything. I don't know what Steve has in the bag this week.
I am writing about kind of the overlooked, least watched kind of thing. I'm going to mix them kind of together and have something about that.
Okay. And yeah, I'll probably have a little quick thing about Tyler Warren too. I think that's very, very fair. Congratulations to him on winning that's the SSSWS PSSPOTY of the Year award. We'll work on that. Nice. In the meantime, thanks to Jay for joining us. Thanks for that conversation. Good chat with him. Website is called StuffSummerSays.com. On that website, there's a section called With
Steve.
We have a podcast which you're listening to. 5 stars, thumbs up. Thank you to everybody that's listened, watched all of that. I really appreciate that. In the meantime, we have emails. Mine's Darian at StuffSummerSays.com. Steve's is
Steve at StuffSummerSays.com.
Perfect. And then, my Twitter handle is at StuffSummerSays. Steve's is
at Steve Samsel.
See ya. Bye.